Hi, and welcome to this episode of Coding with Jess, where I build a thing and you guys get to tag along and code with me doing it. So today we're continuing work on Spotify new releases. If you remember last episode, I got together with Jason Humphreys, who's a product manager at First, although I hear that he's taken a new job since then, so maybe go find out what he's up to now. But we were working on taking our prototype that we started with on our whiteboard, you'll remember, a few weeks ago, and then started mocking up in the browser. He worked on helping me take this prototype to a set of user stories. And so what I'm going to start out by doing this morning is going and visiting our Trello board and seeing where things were left in my episode with Jason and see what we need to pick up from there. So here we go. You go ahead and open a Pomodoro, get that started, except that's not what I wanted. Pomodoro, there we go. And jump that over. All right, 25 minutes. Let's get started. All right, so last week we were working on writing user stories. One of the reasons that I wanted to spend that time with Jason is I wanted to get to a solid list of what it would look like to be done and we could actually ship this project. So we started in Bear, in my little text editor here that I love so much. What lets me type Markdown and formats it for me really nicely. And stores a whole bunch of notes for me. So we came up with this release checklist, and I went ahead and dropped some of these into Trello. So what I'd like to do now is focus on going through and seeing what context we want to add to these, and whether we want to reorder the priority, and really get our MVP checklist down. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple other columns that I like to add in my to-do list. So we have our doing, review, and done lists. And then I want to make sure that we have a MVP list. Yeah, MVP. And then we'll call this backlog. So this, I think all of these things should be in the MVP. And based on what my conversation with Jason we talked about last time, but let's go through and make sure that that's true. That we feel like this is where we need to be, what we need in order to ship the product to customers. And then we can come over here and pull over the remaining things over here. All right, so as a user, I want to view my albums grouped by week of release. I think this is a key feature. Let's go see what we've got going on right now, just as a reminder. All right, let's see. Pull up in our application. I think I have, it's been a couple weeks since I've worked on this, so I can't remember if I'm running Foreman. Probably am. Let's try Foreman start and see what happens. Oh, no command. All right, so how about just Rails? Been working on another project in the meantime between the last time I worked on Spotify new releases and now, and I guess I was using Foreman on that one as the server, probably because I had Sidekick on that one. Okay. All right, cool. So let's head over to localhost 3000 and see what our fun thing looks like, except we probably won't be able to see it now that I'm thinking about it. Oh, Postgres isn't running. All right, let's get that started. Remind me later, Postgres. I might want to do that later. Go ahead and start. Can't remember if we're using 10 or 9.5. So this is a problem with not having worked on it in a bit. Ah, there's my databases. All right, so I probably do want to be running. Let me stop this one and run Postgres 10. Spotify new releases development. Beautiful. Man, I really love this little client. Really handy. All right, so there we go. How about now? We should have database access, but it's going to ask me to log in. I can't remember if we got OAuth completely working. Yeah, we did. Sweet. View my releases. Nice. All right. Cool. So here's some new releases for me. And so right now, like we mentioned, like this card mentions, albums are not grouped by week of release right now. In fact, these are just 20 random albums from probably the hundreds of artists and albums that I have that have been released in the last year. So it's not even in any way really sorted in reverse chronological order. All right, so what I'm going to do as we go through these and I put them in the MVP list is I'm going to give a brief motivation of why this is important and a quick finish line of what it would look like to be done. So normally when I'm working with myself and only myself, I might be able to contain in my head, I want to view my albums group by week of release. But since I'm working with you in some ways and this Trello board is going to be public as well, that you guys are going to get to see and poke at this stuff, I'm going to go ahead and get a little more detail than I would maybe do on a personal project, although I would certainly document my finish line on a personal project so that I don't have to think about it next time I come to this card. All right, so motivation. Users want to see the most recent Spotify albums that have dropped. This allows us to sort those to the top. Grouping by week can be a helpful anchor for what have I seen and what have I not seen. It breaks up the list a little bit. And this is just taking a cue from the way that Artio did it. So we'll do that. All right, finish line. So, okay, so we should have, I'm going to describe this very simply. Not going to use the give and win then format that I normally would use because this is, I think it's overkill in this case. Basically say group albums into week of release. Let's go ahead and define that week. Does it start on Sunday? Does it start on Monday? We'll say Monday through Sunday. Monday being the first day of the week. Monday through Sunday. And then show the most recent weeks first. First, not Gerst. All right, there we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach, since I have those, that's not my playlist folder. I thought I had an example, let's see, that we could drop in here that would kind of remind us what it looks like. Docs, maybe. Yeah, here we go. This week, I think there was another one that had more. Oh, wait, maybe this is it. Nope. Overview this week, last week. Oops. This week. So they just have this little drop down. I'm thinking we'll do something more. Yeah, I don't like any of these examples. They're not particularly indicative of what we're going to build. So that's totally fine. I may need to add maybe need a mock-up. May need a mock-up, a wireframe, whatever. I think we'll just probably design this in the browser. That's usually the way I roll. As I want to load, okay, I want loading the page to feel better. Motivation needs to load more quickly or present the user with a loading indicator. Yeah, so right now this fires off dozens of API calls, which can which can cause the page to take minutes to load. All right, so first is decide on how to reduce loading time. Do we have another thing for that? Let me see. I thought we had a spike on this. Maybe not. I want a simple, let's see, over here I want an informative blank state. I want a simple help page. Will we always get an email for each customer that connects to Spotify? Ooh, that was an interesting thing that we noticed when we were going through the API docs. When I fail to authenticate with Spotify, I want a helpful error message. When I click on an album, I want to be directed to the album in Spotify. I want the releases timeline to have a polished UI and to look good on mobile. I think that's a nice set of MVP features, actually. Yeah, I might say the help page is maybe a simple one would be MVP. I don't know. Now I'm cutting the MVP and I'm not focused on this story here. Focus on this story here. So the reason I'm not focusing on the story here is because this is kind of hard. So we either need to optimize the loading of this screen by doing fewer API calls or like prefetching or doing some caching, or I'm not sure. And so this really needs a spike first. Figure out how to make the page load as fast as possible. All right, we're gonna make a separate card for this because there really is, and we don't know I'm going to go ahead and say this will be, actually, leave it for now. Create a new card, spike, investigate how reduce page load time or we'll call it investigate how to reduce page load time. Motivation for working on this: page loads super slowly right now, no caching, and API calls are unoptimized. Alright, finish line for this is recommend an approach to either recommend an approach to reduce page load time, identify what the likely page load time will be following the approach implemented after it's optimized, and then some notes, possible approaches, reduce the number of API calls. These are not exclusive approaches. Reduce the number of API calls, cache some of the data locally, prefetch the data, show only a week at a time. What else would there be? Probably it. Reduce / combine the number of API calls, cache some of the data, prefetch some data. Yeah, no, that's good. All right, so I'll have to do that first. That, and then this one will actually be, what I was going to say here is dependent on, how do I reference a card? I forget how to do that. Card. This. Boom. There we go. All right, depending on that. All right, then we've got an informative blank state. Definitely need this. Motivation. Finish line. Simple instructions for how to follow more artists in Spotify. All right, I want a simple help page. I think this is post MVP. I'm leaving it in backlog for now. But we always get an email for each customer that connects to all right, we discovered that some accounts may not have an email. If they don't, we need to adjust what we store on the back end. Eventually, we may want to allow them to enter their email directly into Spotify new releases. Man, I really love this product. It's so tiny, but I've thought about it so many times over the last few weeks and wanted it. And yeah, and there's so many cool little things we could do there too. Like in this one, for example, not simple help page. Go away, simple help page. You need to go to the bottom of the backlog. What was the informative blank state? Oh wait, we were just on the spike. So on this one, for example, like what if a user didn't have an email address and they get here, and then right at the top of the page we say, hey, do you want to get an email, a weekly email with new releases that we'll send them to your email address. We just need your email address right here. So you can type in your email address right here, boom, and then you're done. And then we can save that to the user account. Super simple and slick UI. Man, anyway. And usable tiny little tool. As a user, when I fail to authenticate with Spotify, I want a helpful error message. Sure you do. Motivation. Handle failures gracefully, and not just drop them on the floor. Finish line. Simple error message on OAuth failure. Man, I hate dealing with OAuth, but it's a necessary evil in this day and age on the internet. As a user, when I click on an album, I want to be directed to the album in Spotify. So yeah, I think this is like the one Spotify integration piece that makes it useful. The user can, users want to find new music and then listen to it. So we need to direct them to Spotify. Allow them to easily get to Spotify to listen to the music. Now eventually we could replace this with a built-in web player inside of the UI, which is going to be super cool. Can't wait to do that. Every album link should link to the respective album in Spotify. And this one's almost simple enough with just the user story title. When I want to. Yeah. Which, hey, you know, not a bad user story then. All right, I want the release timeline to have a polished UI. Let's make it look good. All right, finish line. I've been thinking about this, and I think I want to match the Spotify UI. Go with the dark theme. Dark themes are all the rage these days. And I think for familiarity's sake, even though I love a nice white light theme because that's what I'm used to that's what I missed from Rdio and what I loved, I think it's better to go with just match the Spotify UI, since that's what we're building, that's where we're pulling all the data from, so we're going to send them to, yeah. So we'll do a quick mock-up of that, but then we can also kind of steal some of their styling of how, not steal, but implement their styling for how they display albums and things like that. So for example, this view, I can use these exact same sizes and, you know, do a fixed width at a certain width and all this kind of stuff. It'll really help to, even the titles here and artist, all of these things I can just use their styles. In fact, I wonder, yeah, no, right clicking doesn't do that. Yeah, so this will be, I think that'll be a nice way to match up with people's expectations. Ooh, look at that little fixed header. That's kind of nice too. We could do that. We could even have the fixed header bump from week to week. That'd be a slick future feature. I'm not going to do that right now. I want the release time to look good on mobile. I'm tired of writing motivations, so I just can't jump straight to the finish line. Responsive UI design for mobile. And this probably might need a mock-up. Again, we might be able to steal some ideas from the Spotify application, or the iOS app, and then see if we can apply those to this. I wonder what happens. Yeah, so you can get it down to that size, but you can't. Can you make that go away? You can almost. So we can go check out the Spotify. I'm going to do this really fast. Go to the Spotify website and see if they have anything. See if they have like a mobile view. Open the web player. What happens if I shrink this down? Is it responsive? Nope. That would be a no, not responsive. Interesting. It's kind of interesting that they didn't go with this responsive in any way, shape, or form. Well, yeah, I guess it could be based on, yeah, they're just like, go get the app. We're not going to build a responsive UI. That's okay. Ours is significantly simpler. There's no navigation. There's none of this stuff, so we can definitely make this work. Here's the good old release radar. This is what we're replacing, folks, right here. We're going to make this better. Here, listen to a song from a album that was randomly released. Don't worry, it updates every Friday. When was it released? I don't know. How do you get to the album? I don't know. Is it an album? Or just a song? Or what is it? Sorry, I'm making fun of you guys, Spotify, a little bit. Because, yeah, you should totally have this feature that I'm building built into your product. And maybe you will one day. But for now, it's fun that we're getting to build this little product based on it. All right, so we've cut one thing from the MVP. Always good to make your MVP smaller. Here's our MVP list. So this doesn't cover everything in the docs. So let's go over and see. This definitely doesn't cover everything we need for release because nothing in here is on production readiness. There is nothing in here that covers production readiness. So let's go. Landing page. Yeah, we need to do that. Let's see. So it doesn't have to be super awesome, but it does need to persuade them. Need to make people feel comfortable giving access to their Spotify account. Needs to look professional. I guess that's more in finish line. Finish line. Explain what happens. Explain/show what happens when they link their Spotify account, and then reassure them. Is that what it was? Look professional so that it doesn't put people off or scare people off, really. All right, got that. As a user, I want to read about how Spotify release timeline was made. I would say that's post MVP. I think it's cool how we're making this together, but not everybody's going to. All right, production readiness. We need to set up production in Heroku. You know what, for right now, while we're doing this, I'm going to make these separate lists. I can combine them later. Production readiness. User stories. Alright, grab the Heroku one. That one is simple enough, I don't need actually all of these. Boop. Oops. SSL. Yep. We're going to have to get that set up. That's always fun. Database backups. CI. Need all those. And simple analytics. Yep. And that one, segment to mix panel. And I think that's going to be like a set it and forget it thing for now. Just do it really fast, get it done. All right. Better name and logo. Okay. So this is the go-to-market. I'm going to call this post MVP because this is actually a broader release. This is good stuff. I'm so glad that I got to talk about this stuff with Jason. It's really helpful to have somebody to brainstorm when you're talking about how do you get the word out about your product. Better name and logo. By domain. Product hunt. And then this one has a lot of notes that we made about, I think we could do that there, which is kind of fun. One thing I don't like about Bear is it doesn't have column or select, so I can't well, I guess I could have mass unindented that, and that would have made it faster. Twitter post from my personal account for now. And time-lapse video of the entire build process. Yeah, that was an interesting idea. I'd say that's only an idea. Google's keyword viewer. Optimize for and then load up my homepage with appropriate keywords. Okay, so we now have a set of user stories that are features. I'm going to call these features. Features, and then we have production readiness, and then ship it. So once we get these two lists done, we can ship the MVP. And by ship it, basically probably just a Twitter post for now, like, hey, here's something I've been working on. Dang it. We probably do need a domain. Okay, so this is over here. Buy a domain, set up SSL. Do we need a better name and logo? Golly day. Spotify new releases. So this is the broad release then is really this product hunt and all that kind of stuff. Shipping the MVP. I mean, is that horrible, guys? SpotifyNewReleases.com. All right, we'll do a name brainstorming later. Right now, that was just my Pomodoro reminding us that it's time for a break. And I think we're going to call this done. And when I come back, we'll see which one of these we want to pick up and get started working on. All right, back in 5. See you guys. Alrighty, so we're back. We wrapped up during our last Pomodoro, we wrapped up this Trello board. It's ready to go. We can get started working on the first thing at the top. So I think that's where we got to start. View my albums group by week of release. And I'm a little nervous about this. I was actually on Pomodoro break, I'll be honest. I was thinking about what could I work on instead of this, because it relates to the reducing page load time, and that makes me nervous too. So I'm kind of like, anyway, I mean, it's funny that, like, as exciting as this project is and as cool as working on this stuff is, there's still stuff that makes me nervous that I try to avoid. It's just funny to observe our own silly habits. All right, I've got a server open in the first tab. In the second tab, I'm going to open Rails console. In the next tab, I will run guard. Ha! Except we don't have guard because we don't have any tests yet. I forgot about that. Okay, well, we'll get there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and check out a branch. This is going to be albums by week. And now, it's actually kind of fun. I mean, I was definitely nervous about tackling this and was trying to find ways to avoid it. But this is actually going to be some pretty cool stuff to work out in code. So right now we've got, let's revisit what we have, right? We have our Spotify service. Spotify service allows us to basically just connect to Spotify and authenticate. Actually, it looks like all we have in the Spotify service. Ooh, we may need to move some things into Spotify service. All right, so Spotify service is sort of like our API adapter class, and it's in the services class, or the services folder here in Rails, which tends to be where people put these things. There's no rule about where you put them, but that seems like a reasonable place. So it's a service that allows us to communicate with Spotify. And the main thing that we have now here is the authentication stuff. So you remember we were talking about just now grabbing the email address. We don't grab the email address. Check that out. We create a user with an access token, refresh token. Interesting. Huh. I'm going to go make a note on that card that we're not currently grabbing it. We're actually not currently storing email address. Grimace. All right, we need to do that, but we'll do that later. Okay, so this is why Trello is so great, right? Like, you document that stuff. Next, when I pick up this card, I'll have that context right away instead of having to come read the code to find out that, oh, by the way, we're not actually storing email address at all, much less finding out whether it's always coming back. All right, so then we have I imagine I probably did everything in the controller because why not? Let's see. Yep, so this is our super gimpy hacky code here for getting all of, well, it doesn't even get all of. So here's what this does, right? This starts off and gets 20 followed artists. The reason it gets 20 followed artists is that's the default returned by Spotify's API. So developer API albums. Let me see if that'll give me a deep link into. Nope, that's their old one. Brand new. Thank you. Wanted to see the brand new one. All right, so we're doing artists, followed artists. Oh man, look at this. Yeah. So we're going to want to take this stuff out, this HTTP party get, and drop that over in the Spotify service. But I remember now why we're doing it this way. Right, because we had looked at a couple of, at two different Ruby gems for interacting with the Spotify API, and both of them had bugs that were pretty serious bugs around accessing followed artists. So instead of trying to fix those bugs, which would be a separate, like, could be a separate episode of this, it'd be interesting, we just decided, look, there's only a few endpoints that we're going to need. We'll just implement them by hand. And that also actually allowed us to implement auth, hand roll our own auth a little bit, and get that working pretty quickly. So yeah, I've done way more hand rolling than I'm comfortable with in this, but that's cool. It's gotten us where we are. So what this is going to do is get 20 followed artists. So what I was saying here is We could actually look at the pagination. I think there's probably a general reference on pagination here. Let's see. Let me make this a little bigger. Get a little bigger. Whoa, that's a interesting thing. Let me make it full screen and refresh and see if that fixes things. Yeah, there we go. Interesting. Get all categories, player, follow artists, get users, follow artists. Here we go. Default 20, right? So we need to set a limit. The limit is a max of 50. And so our algorithm is going to run something like this. Get all artists for user in chunks of 50 at a time. So that could be some number of queries. And then here, we're going to get a followed artist's albums. Oh my gosh, this is going to totally blow up. This is why I was a little bit scared. It's okay. Calm down. It's going to be okay. All right, get multiple albums identified by their Spotify IDs. This is where a GraphQL API would be so freaking nice because we only need little touch points of information, and this REST API is not as friendly. Get an album, get an album's tracks. Huh. They don't have any deep linking into... here it is. I want to come up here. Get an album's... I bet it's going to be under the artist API. Get an artist's albums. Here we are. Okay, optional parameters can be specified. Include groups. Okay, so we can start off by just saying get albums only and ignore singles and appears on. Maybe. That might help us reduce the number of albums that we're returning. Maximum, again, of 50. So, most, shoot, we're gonna have to roll our own pagination. That's okay. It's okay. We'll wrap that up inside the Spotify service, and we'll probably have to write some tests around it. Okay, so get all artists for users in chunks of 50 at a time. And then we're going to get all albums for each artist in chunks of 50. Okay, think about that. And then we want to sort the albums by release date, group into weeks. Man, I really want to cache that, but like, how would we even know when to bust the cache? So, okay, so this is exactly why we write user stories sometimes, and I should probably just come in here and say, you know what, out of scope, optimizing the performance of the page. Let's just get the sorting right and fetching the data, and then we can optimize the fetching and the storage later. And then, what was that other card name? Spike. Spike. All right, so out of scope. Don't think about performance. Don't think about performance. So like if you were pairing with me right now, I would remind you to tell me not to think about performance when I start thinking about performance, because it's really easy when I'm writing all this to be like, let's try and make it faster. Don't make it faster. Just make it work, then make it fast. Okay, so if that's our approach here, then what this method in the controller should really be pretty darn simple, which I'm pretty sure it should be something like @albums equals Spotify service. I'm looking up here at this user. Right, okay. Yeah, so yeah, anyway. So it should be probably Spotify service.get albums for user. Man, that could be a lot of albums. Okay, now I'm talking about performance again. Dang it. Okay. So let's just state it then and not try to fix it. But that could be, let's do some quick math. Let's see, I've got, how many followed artists do I have? I wish I knew that. I bet I cannot find out because Spotify is not great at showing this stuff. Let me give you guys a little zoom in action. Artists, holy smokes. All right, rough math. Here we go. Just for giggles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across the top. 1, 2, 3, 18. 18 per page. One page. Oh, can you page down that way? Or maybe I can click. All right. Okay. So we're going to say each click is a page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 times 18. I have 360 followed artists. So if they have an average of, say, 5 albums, holy smokes. If they have an average of 5 albums a piece, we're looking at 1,800 albums on the releases page. Okay, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. We just scope it down to albums in, maybe we call this get recent albums for user, and released after. I'm getting this, I want to get this interface right because I want to go over and get all of this code that's down here out of the controller and into Spotify service. So I want to get this require HTTP party out of my controller, which just seems gimpy in so many ways. So yeah, let's see. So get recent albums for user released after time dot. So it's interesting. There's going to be those 1,800-ish albums, somewhere around 2,000 albums or so, are going to be returned for my user. But then we can use dates to filter it down, and we'll say 2 weeks ago. No, we'll do 3 months ago, and just see what comes back. All right, so there's our albums stuff, and then we'll need to do, just to be clear, we'll need to do some work over in the index for releases to actually group by week. And we could group them into, so we could group them in Rubyland. I'm sorry, we could group them in the controller before we come over to here and then have something to iterate over. So we could do something like this, like albums by week, and then do some kind of collection to collect those up. But I think this is good for now. Let's not try to optimize the code in advance anymore. So quick, don't have any tests right now. Let's do def self dot, what's our method called? Get recent albums for. We're gonna make one small change, and hopefully everything's gonna still work. And then we're gonna do some other more massive optimization. And after, I forget how Ruby named parameters works. Keyword arguments, can't even remember what they're called. Yeah, that's the options. That's the old way of doing it. Okay, I thought that was the case. So just put a trailing colon. Boom. So that should give me, and then I can have a default. Can you combine positionals and, I'll just, instead of trying to find that out, I'll just make both of them keyword arguments. All right, sweet. And yes, I just had to look that up about Ruby. I am not coding Ruby every day, and so there are times when that stuff has to be looked up because I forget the basic syntax, especially since I'm dealing with multiple other languages each day as well. All right, so hopefully I can just now copy this code over. And paste it in. I'm going to need HTTP party. Ooh, look how clean it looks. Ooh, I like this tiny little skinny controllers. Skinny controllers are a good thing. All right, let's see. We've got albums. I'm not going to need... Oh, right. We were passing this in. So that's silly. I'm going to cut that from the index.html here. The ufollow. There's no reason to display that. We can definitely do that later on. Interesting. So my brain is going to optimization stuff again. I need to stop doing that. Stay focused right here. All right. Now that this is getting, I don't need to assign this to a variable anymore. I can just return the output of this select. And all right, I should be able to refresh this page, and everything should work. And it doesn't. Oh, because we changed the name of that variable. All right. Any other ats in here that I'm missing? See, my pair is supposed to tell me that when I'm making those kinds of silly mistakes. Boom, still works. Simple, super simple refactor. Okay. So now what we need to do. Okay. What I'm debating right now is I don't think I've added any testing at all to this. This is basically the development and test blocks are. So we could set up our spec right now and VCR and write a unit test around we could set up RSpec and VCR and write a unit test for grabbing all of the artists and albums. Because we basically will be testing this algorithm. Are we actually doing pagination properly? Are we sorting by release date properly? I did set this up on another project very recently, and I'm trying to remember how long it took based on how much time I have available today. Tell you what, we've got 6 minutes and 50 seconds left in this Pomodoro, right? I'm looking up here on my menu bar. Let's give it a go. Let's use the rest of this Pomodoro to try and set up RSpec and VCR and see if we can just power through it. And I definitely would prefer to be writing this in a test-driven way. It's just the initial setup time of getting tests running can be annoying sometime. And I know I probably should have started with the better boilerplate that had our RSpec already set up. Looks like VCR and WebMock are already here. And I can't remember if I need RSpec Rails. Let's see. Yeah, I think I just need that. Whoa. Yeah, stable release. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Why the development and test? Oh, there it is, right there. RSpec Rails is there. Silly me. Okay, do we have an RSpec file? Have we set this thing up? Oh. Oh, we haven't set up guard. We already have tests. I am such a goofer. Oh. And we have VCR set up. Man, look at me. You know why this is, yeah. You see that a month ago? Yeah, April 24th. You know what today is? June 6th. So this is what happens when you haven't worked on a project for 5 weeks, is you forget the stuff you've done, and yeah, okay. We will definitely write tests for this and get this working. Cool. Okay, well, I'm very glad that that is the case. Then the one thing I'm going to do, since this is going to be a sort of iterative process here, is I'm going to make sure and open my gem file and add guard. And I think I need like guard rspec. Guard rspec. Says in my development group. All right. Bundle install. TZ info. Fetching rspec. Did I leave that in there? Oh. Huh. Okay. Guard? No guard file, fine. Guard in it. Guard? Directory is already being watched. Interesting. Through mini CSS extract plugin. I don't know what that is. Interesting. That must be a Rails 6.0 asset pipeline thing, which I haven't dug into yet. And if you guys remember, we're using, in fact, something we should do probably in a later cast, a later recording or session or whatever, is upgrade to Rails 6.0 final. We're still running on Rails 6.0 beta 3, which I believe is going to be pretty close to final, but we should still do that. Yeah, I bet that watch is coming from Packer. All right, well, as long as those warnings don't cause anything to blow up, we'll just do that. Bundle exec guard. And then let's see what happens if I save the Spotify service. Does it run my tests? Yep, it does. Singularity template handles are deprecated. Environment.rb. Huh, alright. Well, we'll figure out what those deprecation warnings are in a bit. I'm going to ignore those for now. And we want a spec for getting recent albums for this person. Now here's the trick. We need a working access token for this user. And so I think what I can do is, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've done this before. So Spotify service spec, we can go get a working access token for one time, and then that will record it. And then if we ever re-record it, the access token will be invalid. And everything will break, but we can do some research and figure out what a better way to handle that would be. But we can at least get the test started. Get recent albums for this. In fact, I probably already have user.last.access token. Yeah, we already have a working access token right here. Okay, cool. So that's what we'll do. So then what should our test do? It should say it returns albums released in the last month within the time frame, I guess. It does not return albums released in outside. Does not return an album released outside of the time frame. I think that's the most important thing. It's going to return them. Okay, time for a quick break, y'all. We'll be back in just a minute. Alright guys, I've got something coming up in 15 minutes, so we're going to have to cut this one short. So this will be a short Pomodoro here, a 15-minute Pomodoro, or a 15-minute session, and try and wrap this up. Okay, so returns albums within the time frame. We've got this wonderful code here. What we're going to want to do is create a user that we can pass into this method. I can't think of anything else we want to test for here because we don't actually care. We can't actually say, does it return someone for this? Like, we don't want to test the logic of like followed artists or anything. It's mainly, do we get albums back? Yeah, and we can do a quick test on running through the albums and make sure that they're in the right time frame. All right, so let's do this thing. Let's see, I'm going to need an HTTP party get. We're going to need a user to pass into this. Let's see, so it's going to be Spotify service.get recent albums for user and released after 2 weeks ago or something like that. We're also going to want to use time cop here because effectively our request is going to be frozen in time to this exact moment. Now, I don't know if that makes sense to you guys why that is the case, but maybe I can. Okay, so the way this is going to work is VCR is going to save requests going out to Spotify API. I don't know if you guys have ever thought about how it's just magic and responses coming back from the Spotify API. And it's going to save these to a JSON in like YAML format to a file. And then every time the test is run in CI or locally after this, it will rerun that file to play these requests and responses back instead of actually hitting these. So then this will not be hit in future test runs. So what that means is that whatever responses we get back from these requests is locked to whatever requests we get back from, or whatever responses we get back from this request is the right answer for now of albums released in the last 2 weeks. But going forward into the future, it's going to be increasingly the wrong answer. And so what we're going to want to do is have timecop travel. And then what timecop does is it locks system time down. And we're going to want to have timecop travel to like right now, whatever time it is right now, whenever we fire off these requests. And then and then when we run the method saying get all albums released in the last 2 weeks, that method will continue to return a consistent number of albums into the future because even though we're returning albums that are released further and further back, because we'll have this timecop time travel, it'll be set to a time that we check in. You'll see how it works in just a second, but I did want to walk through that logic because it may seem a little confusing, and it's hard to talk through in code, I think. Maybe easier on the whiteboard. All right, so we definitely need a let user create user. Again, forgetting what I have and what I don't have. Do I have factory bot in here? No, I do not. Okay, that's okay. We'll just do user.new. Can it be new? Do they need to be saved? I don't think so. Access code is that gosh awful thing. And I don't know if we need anything else on the user. Does user have any required fields? Can't remember. No, we should add that to our production ready list. Required fields for user. That's generally a bad idea. We want to use database constraints and things like that to make sure that you don't end up with bad data and that you get the appropriate failures. But for right now, that's happy in that we can go ahead and create this. Unknown attribute, access code, access token. How about that? All right, now we got this. Now it's going to pass in. The whole thing has VCR on it, so it probably just recorded. Interesting. All right, so I have no idea what just happened in terms of. Let's see, Spotify service probably pulled the user's access token. Albums equals that, and we'll say expect albums not to be empty, and see what that says for now. And we're getting a nil error on line 40. Okay, maybe this access token is no longer valid. Let's go see. Refresh. Yeah, probably access token no longer valid. Let's go back to here, reconnect, view my releases, and then come over here, user.last.access token. Yep, access token has changed. All right, that's fine. Again, there's got to be a better way to handle this, but this does work, which is kind of fun. All right, and how much time do we have? We've got 10 minutes left. All right, that's working. Save here. Come on, baby. Oh no. Is it like clearing my user access token? Maybe it doesn't like, I mean, we're doing the same thing up here, right? User create. All right, what? Let me see if this page is now broken. I wonder if Spotify is doing something clever. Oh! Our YAML file. VCR has already recorded, remember? That I was telling you guys what it would do? Okay, so RM spec cassettes, Spotify service, get, all right, yes. Okay, now our spec should pass, I think. Ooh, look at that, chugga, boom. This is why we don't want them to like actually hit the API every single time, and we want to record instead of doing this thing. So, all right, so what we're gonna do is timecop.travel, I believe is what it is, to today's date, and not time.now. We're actually gonna have to manually type in today's date and time, except I don't remember what the timecop version is that I should be using. Maybe it's already in my gem file. I kind of doubt it though. Although we've gotten lucky with a lot of things being on a gem file, haven't we? All right, gem timecop. And the most recent version is 091. So we'll do 1 and do a bundle install over here. 7 more minutes. Oh, I so want to get this done. Yeah, all right. Let's see. Close the user, close the gem file, and then I got to remember the syntax, which I don't, for travel. Travel. And you pass in a time. It's an interesting way of doing it. Yeah, technically we could do freeze or travel. Either one would be fine. Let's see. I'm going to be really clear here. Time of Spotify API request equals today's date is what, the 19th? 6/6, and we'll say it's 11:24. All right, and then time of Spotify request, travel, do all these things. We'll do it in a block. And okay. And then our 2 weeks ago will now properly adjust to be 2 weeks before 2019 6. You know what? I could have done this whole thing without that. We could just set release after to be like 2 weeks before this date and not have time cop and not have to add it to our bundle. I'm just going to leave it alone. Just in case we end up with any time math in here, yeah, if we end up with some time math in here, it might mess some things up. All right, so better to just move the whole system time. That's what time cop was meant for. Expect albums to not be empty. That is, yes, I meant time cop. Thank you. That's working. Great. All right, now we have a little test that successfully worked. Well, it doesn't test much, does it? Albums should not be empty. So we should go albums.each.do album and iterate over each one and get album release date. Can we turn that into a time? Yeah, like this. Here we go. Expect date.parse album release date to rspec date matchers. My brain is slowly blanking on how I want to do this. Okay, so we want to make sure that it is before. Basically, just want to assert that something is true. Let's see. Getting another parenthesis there. Date.parse album release date. So that's going to be the release date is after 2 weeks ago. Something like that. Okay. So one of our albums was not released in the last 2 weeks. Not a surprise there. If we do this, that might magically clear it up. Oh, 14. Boom. All right, so that now passes, and you know what, now that I think about it, this negative assertion isn't necessary because we're going to check and make sure that everything isn't within the time frame. Cool. All right, so now we have a test around this and we can start refactoring, but I have 2 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and get this pushed up to GitHub and stop for the day. Refactor and test our albums, recent albums method, get push origin, albums by week. All right, well, we made some progress today. You can go here. We've got a vulnerability too that we need to resolve. I saw that the other day. And so this is going to be, we can go ahead and create a draft pull request. And this is going to be for, what's the user story here that we're working on? As user, I want to view my albums group by week of released. All right, we'll just go ahead and open this for now, and we'll come back and make some changes to it later. All right, 11:30. I've got another meeting I've got to jump to, so sad I didn't get in 3 full Pomodoros today, but we got some work done, and yeah, looking forward to wrapping this feature up. See you guys later. Hi, and welcome